The Nashville Predators got a 4-1 win over the Ottawa Senators, and there were three very surprising statistics to take away from that game.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this post-game episode with a special shout out to our Locked On Pred heads, our everydayers who tune in to listen and talk about Nashville Predators hockey each and every day. We love that we get to spend a little bit of your day with you, and we thank you so much for your support. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at the Hockey News. I'm usually joined by my partner in crime, Nick Morgan. Nick's going to be back next week. We have a lot to dive into today. We're going to talk about the win against Ottawa last night at Bridgestone Arena. We also need to take a look around the Western Conference because things, my friends, are a-changing in the standings. Of course, before we do any of that, I do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Last night, the Nashville Predators came back to Bridgestone Arena after a 6-game road trip in which they won all 5 games. It's early. I'm losing count. They won their games. They came home to Bridgestone Arena, which we talked about on yesterday's show has not always been an easy place for the Predators to win, but they did that last night. They won 4-1 over the Ottawa Senators. And as always at Locked On Predators, we're going to kick off by sharing one word to describe last night's game. Those of you who listen to the show often know I'm a big fan of theater. So today my word is a theater word, and that word is dress rehearsal. So in the theater world, often before a show opens to the public, the theater has several different rehearsals, dress rehearsals. So some of them are to finalize things like lighting and blocking, and you kind of call those tech rehearsals. They check, lighting and audio and that kind of thing. One of them is usually set aside to invite friends and family of the cast to come in and sit for the performance. And it's really a special kind of time because the cast gets to perform in front of an audience, which is always very, very different than performing and practicing in an empty theater. But it's the people in their life that come to see the show who have been watching them memorize lines and go to costume fittings and head off to rehearsals every night. So it's a really special rehearsal before opening night. People in theater have superstitions very similar to hockey people. And there's an adage in the theater world that the worse the dress rehearsal, the better the opening night. But I don't think you're going to find any director who actually believes that and wants to see that lived out. Nashville really had kind of a dress rehearsal last night. They've been on the road. They've done their tech rehearsals on the road. They've kind of nailed down some of the logistics of their game that they needed to shore up. And then last night they came home to perform in front of their friends and family at Bridgestone Arena. And again, let's talk about the last game that the Predators played at home. That was that 9-2 absolute abysmal performance against the Dallas Stars. The worst game I've personally ever seen at Bridgestone Arena. So I think the crowd was a little bit nervous. What's going to happen? What are we going to see when the Predators take the ice? Last night, that was a pretty good dress rehearsal. It was not perfect. Let's be clear. There were definitely times where, the players kind of flubbed their lines or props weren't where you needed them to be. But in the end, it was a strong finish. And I think that the show ended very well with a 4-1 win. So for me, that was a pretty good dress rehearsal. Definitely areas for improvement before the big show. I guess in hockey, maybe that's the playoffs. We'll talk about that later with the Predators. But I think it was a pretty good dress rehearsal for the Predators returning to Bridgestone Arena, where they have had kind of some bad mojo lately. In case you didn't catch the game, real quick recap before we dive in to talk about 3 surprising statistics that came out of those 60 minutes of hockey. Nashville did get on the board first. Compliments of noted offensive weapon and one of Nashville's most offensively productive lines, that fourth line, and Michael McCarron. Michael McCarron scored at 3:23 with a really fun kind of spin around shot from the circle. Nashville followed it up with a power play goal, compliments of Roman Josi from the point at 5:44. At the end of the first period, Drake Batherson answered back with a power play goal with just over a minute left in the period to make it 2-1 after 1. Late in the second period, Roman Josi scored on a rush chance, skating down the side and scoring glove side high on Joonas Korpisalo to make it a 3-1 game at the end of 2. Gus Nyquist proved that he can score against just 5 skaters and not 6 with an extra attacker late in the third period to make the final score a 4-1 game. So after 60 minutes of hockey, walking away and looking at the stats, there were 3 statistics from this game that actually really shocked me. Statistic number 1, and how I didn't know this is just beside me. Roman Josi in last night's game had 2 goals and an assist, 3-point game. His assist came on Michael McCarron's goal, and it was a beaut of an assist. It was a beaut, Clark. But Roman Josi, my friends, has never scored a hat trick. And I have to tell you, I was absolutely shocked by that. I was 100% committed to Roman Josi. Hat trick watch. And it didn't happen last night. And friends, it's never happened in his career. According to Alex Doherty, who now covers the Nashville Predators for the Tennesseans, so check out his work, Roman Josi has had 18 games with 2 goals. This is only his first multi-goal game of the season, which I also found surprising. But Roman Josi has never had a hat trick. I was so shocked last night and so invested in Roman Josi getting a hat trick. And it was kind of fun. We talked to Roman Josi about it after the game. I just want you to see what he had to say real quick about getting so close to a hat trick. He had a third shot that was literally inches from crossing the goal line. It didn't happen. This is what Roman Josi had to say about that.
It's close. I don't know. Yeah, I've been. I don't know. You know, we had some looks. I had some looks in the third period. Some chances, but I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get one. Huh?
I thought that was so funny. He just kind of laughed about it. But y'all, now can we all just collectively agree to be overly invested in Roman Josi getting a hattie sometime this season? And it's surprising to me that he hasn't had one, because Roman Josi has been this team's points leader for the last 4 seasons. And that includes that season where Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg were racing for that goal scoring record. He is a staple in the Predators offense. It might not seem surprising in general to say, wow, there's a defenseman who hasn't had a hat trick. But when you're talking about Roman Josi, my friends, that is shocking. Andrew Brunette, after the game, talked about Josi as a player, what you can expect from him offensively. And he just said, look, this is somebody who always plays a dynamic game. Not at all surprised to see him get that close to getting that hat trick. Loved his performance on the ice. And we have to be honest here at Locked On Predators. We're honest. We tell the truth in love. And we have to say that Roman Josi was one of the players who I think had a little bit of a shaky start to this season, like a number of other players did. But here's what's real. Nashville has to have Roman Josi playing like Roman Josi, not just now, you know, as they kind of battle for a wild card spot and to see what happens this season, but you have to have peak Roman Josi through this entire reset that Barry Trotz is undertaking, because it's not going to be successful if you don't have Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, and whoever is in goal playing their best hockey. So a lot of pressure on Roman Josi. Didn't get the hat trick last night. My friends, so invested in it. Of course, when I cover games, not something I can be a part of, can't, you know, throw a hat or anything like that. So maybe if he gets one this season, I'll just pull like one little piece of hair out of my head and just drop it that way. I don't know, but let's see. Roman Josi, we are waiting on your hat trick. Coming up, there are 2 other really surprising statistics from last night's game that I think we need to talk about that tells us something about this team moving forward. We're also later on going to take a quick look around the Western Conference and take a look at the standings. things really changed last night across the league with some wild card games and some Western Conference games. First, though, want to let you know this episode's brought to you by our great friends at Game Time. You should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Now, there's tons of sports action kicking up here in Nashville, and Game Time has your tickets for all of them, whether it is the Nashville Predators, Nashville SC, Vanderbilt, or Belmont basketball, or maybe you want to check out the Nashville Sounds. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to get the best price for your next evening out. And Game Time has deals right up until the start of the event, so you can add a fun last-minute activity to your evening. You can also get flash deals and sponsored deals, and the Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So coming up on tomorrow's show, Nashville, again, back on home ice. They've got a 5-game homestand, won the first of those. Tomorrow night, they're going to face the Minnesota Wild and John Hines. And friends, we may need to gird our loins before this game. We're going to talk about what the Predators need to do to be successful coming up on tomorrow's show. We're talking right now about shocking statistics from the Predators' 4-1 win over the Ottawa Senators. The second shocking statistic we need to talk about involves shots on goal. Nashville got off to a hot start last night. They recorded the first 7 shots on goal before Ottawa even got anything to Josi Saros. But then the game turned in that first period, and Nashville was outshot 14-1. So what happened in that stretch in the first period? Well, again, hot start from the Nashville Predators. They came out with some initial energy, and then they kind of hit a rough patch midway through the first and partway through the second that kind of continued. I think it was, the initial energy of we're at home, we want to prove something at home. And then I think maybe a little bit of fatigue maybe set in. And once Ottawa sort of got some momentum going, it was difficult for Nashville to catch up and interrupt that. Now, penalties did not help, as they very rarely do, my friends. We had Michael McCarron in the box for fighting when Colton Sissons sat down next to him for a trip. And right there, you have 2 of your best penalty killers serving time. Not ideal. Predators did kill off that penalty, but later on in the first period, Kiefer Sherwood sat for a trip, which then led to the power play goal by Drake Batherson. So that really interrupted Nashville's ability to sort of turn the momentum of the game. And it took some time in the second period to get them back on even footing. I think this entire game pivoted on that late goal by Roman Josi. First of all, it gave the Predators a 2-goal lead again. And I know people say a 2-goal lead is the worst lead in hockey. It's 1 goal better than a 1-goal lead. So I think that gave Nashville a little bit of breathing room. It also gave Nashville a little bit of momentum to carry into the second intermission and into the third period. Remember, Nashville has had problems being scored on late in periods. Happened in the first period of this game. So to see Nashville get that late goal in the second period really was kind of the pivot point for this game. And then the third period happened. And this third period was unlike anything I think I've seen from Nashville in a long time. The Nashville Predators outshot Ottawa 20-0 in the third period. That's right. 0 shots on goal by the Ottawa Senators in the third period. We talked to the players and Andrew Brunette after the game about, hey, that third period, what was going on? How did you shut down Ottawa? And what's really interesting is that several of the players had no idea that they had held Ottawa to no shots on goal in the third period. So I want to show you their reaction, and let's hear from them on what they think was so important in shutting down Ottawa in that third period.
Close out a game like that the way you did. You outshot them 19-0 in the third period. Just what are your thoughts on kind of slamming the door on them like you did?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Like I said, we had a good third period. I don't know what else to say. I think, like I said, we're all connected. We're all playing the system really well.
We actually just talked about that. I didn't know, but it's probably one of our best third periods this year, especially being up 3-1, and I felt like we had the puck most of the period, playing in their zone, and that next goal is so big and 3-1 lead, and it was that was great. I mean that's how you want to play every time you have to lead, but obviously it's not that easy. But it was really good tonight.
No, I thought we were just relentless on pucks. I think we hounded pucks. We won stick battles in general. We were quick out of our D zone, got pucks back in the O zone, and
we just kind of came, wave after wave, kind of got them on their heels. They were taking on water, and we kept pressuring the puck. I thought we did a great job on the puck. Didn't give them a whole lot of room. I mean, they're a pretty dangerous team, as we saw during a couple stretches of the, last part of the first period, early part of the second. But I thought we kind of settled in and then got back to our relentless game.
So I love what Andrew Brunette says, because that's the best way to describe what we saw in the third period. It was just wave after wave. Every line, every defensive pairing that came over the board just continued the momentum that Nashville had built up. Now, I'm going to tell you that there was a moment of panic for me. There was a little bit of like a nervous downside as I watched Nashville just rack up all of these shots and Ottawa get none. About midway through the third period, I just had this moment of like, do we realize that Josi Saros has not faced a shot in 30 minutes because he took 20 minutes for an intermission, and he's just standing down there whistling for the first 10 minutes of this game? And it makes you wonder, like, is he going to be okay when they finally get a shot on goal? We didn't find out. They never got a shot on goal. And Saros, again, a really strong game from Josi Saros, stopped 24 of 25 shots. They only scored on the power play, and that's the Josi Saros that you really need to see down the stretch for the Nashville Predators. But to be able to hold a team, any team, to 0 shots on goal in the third period, that just tells you how relentless Nashville was in that period. And if they can play like that, if they can get that momentum going and then start just rolling lines to keep pressure on other teams, that's a difference maker in a game, even against a team like Colorado. That's how you're going to win games against these really competitive playoff contention teams. Surprising stat number 3 we have to talk about, and that has to do with special team statistics. Nashville was 1 for 3 on the power play, 1 for 2 on the penalty kill. Overall, I would say that I think the power play looked better than it has. I think that the Predators, we've talked about Andrew Brunette, really spent time over the All-Star break studying film. He's made some changes to the personnel. He's made some changes to the structure and who is where. Nashville had 5 shots on goal in their 3 attempts, and of course had that Roman Josi power play goal in the first period. When you talk about what is working with the power play, I think you're getting more looks, and that's coming because the Predators are moving the puck faster. Talked with Roman Josi, like, hey, what is the difference when you are successful? And his thing is, it's about fast puck movement. Yes, get in there and get set up, but you've got to move the puck fast if you're going to generate space and create chances against anybody's penalty kill. So I thought, okay, that was pretty good on the power play. Overall, you have to remember Ottawa is the second worst team in the league right now on the penalty kill. And you've got to remember that even through this stretch of, 6 wins, 5 on the road, last night's win at Bridgestone, Nashville's only scored 3 goals on 21 power play chances. And that statistic is a reminder that the Predators have to be better than that on special teams down the stretch. You're not going to win any sort of playoff games, and you may not even get into the playoffs if your special teams isn't a little bit better than that. Coming up on the schedule for Nashville, there's an opportunity to get some more practice and to get a little bit stronger on the power play. Minnesota coming in tomorrow. They have the fourth worst power play or penalty kill. Fourth worst penalty kill in the league. So maybe Nashville can build some momentum tomorrow on a power play. Saturday, they faced Colorado. Colorado's in the top third as far as penalty kill. Next week, they've got Montreal and Buffalo. Montreal, third worst kill in the league. Buffalo's kind of middle of the pack. So there are going to be opportunities over this home stretch for Nashville to make some gains when it comes to their power play statistics. They absolutely have to do that. They have got to get better and better with consistency on the man advantage. You do not want to be struggling with special teams at this point in the season. And if the Predators make it into the playoffs, you certainly can't be struggling with special teams there. Speaking of playoffs, I know there is a lot of talk about what the Nashville Predators should be doing right now with the trade deadline just 9 days away. Should Barry Trotz make a deal for Josi Saros? Should the Predators even be talking about the playoffs right now? Should the team move on from players like Tommy Novak, Kiefer Sherwood, and Mark Jankowski, even though their performances in this win streak really are keeping Nashville in a wild card spot? We are going to should the fire out of those questions and more tomorrow as we tackle Barry Trotz and the trade deadline on the episode tomorrow. Of course, Nashville has to stay focused on the games that they have. And stop me if you've heard this scenario before. Nashville, 6-game win streak, and they're preparing to host the Minnesota Wild and former Predators head coach John Hines at Bridgestone Arena. Yeah, we've seen that movie before, friends, and it's a horror movie. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what Nashville has to do differently this go round as they face off against the Minnesota Wild at home tomorrow night. We're also going to take a look around the Western Conference. A lot changed last night with several teams who are in the playoff hunt. First, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by our great friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy in sports. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So if Nashville wants to stay into this playoff chase, they're going to have to keep pace with and stay ahead of several other teams in the standings. And last night was a really busy night around the league with Western Conference teams and teams that Nashville is competing with for a wild card spot. So let's take a look at where the Western Conference standings are this morning. Where do the Nashville Predators land in the wild card chase right now? So here are the quick scores from around the league last night. Of course, Nashville beat Ottawa 4-1. Vegas defeated Toronto 6-2. I think this is interesting because the Maple Leafs coach got booted for a game misconduct. I don't even know what to say about that. Montreal, who the Predators are facing next week, defeated the Arizona Coyotes, who, bless their hearts, have lost 13 in a row. I hate that for Connor Ingram. You know, at Locked On Predators, we are big Connor Ingram fans, but I kind of like it for the Nashville Predators because we remember where the Arizona Coyotes were kind of chasing the Preds earlier in the season. The Winnipeg Jets beat the St. Louis Blues 4-2. I'm here for that when it comes to the standings. I'm also here for that when it comes to Jordan Binnington because I'm petty like that. Carolina came back to beat Minnesota, which was a really big outcome. They won 3-2. The Calgary Flames beat the LA Kings 4-2. And the Avalanche, the game of delight for the evening, beat the Dallas Stars 5-1. And friends, I know that Colorado is a Central Division rival as well, but doesn't it feel a little bit good to see that the Stars can lose 5-1? Vancouver, this one really surprised me. Vancouver lost to the Penguins in overtime 4-3. So Vancouver only collected 1 point last night over the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a lot happened with these Western Conference teams. So after last night, where does this all sift out with regards to the postseason and where Nashville is? So in the Central Division, top spot belongs to the Winnipeg Jets. 83 points. Dallas is in second with 79 points. Colorado in third with 77. Dallas has played one more game than Colorado, so there's still a race going on there. When it comes to the wild card in the West, this is still kind of wide open, which is interesting. The LA Kings and Nashville are now tied for that first wild card spot with 68 points. The Kings do have 2 games in hand. LA's next 4 games are against Vancouver, New Jersey Devils, back to Vancouver, and then the Ottawa Senators. So they've got some challenging games coming up in the short term. The Calgary Flames are in like that third spot with 63 points. Their next 4 games are against Pittsburgh, Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Florida. St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild are tied in 4th. They have 62 points. The Flames have played 1 more game than the Blues. And it's interesting when you look at their schedules coming up. St. Louis has Edmonton tomorrow night. Then they're going to face the Wild, which is going to be a really interesting game for Predators fans to watch as the Blues and Wild face off. Philadelphia Flyers and the Islanders. Minnesota, of course, coming to Nashville tomorrow night. Then they'll play St. Louis. Then they have San Jose and Arizona. Kind of rounding out that wild card race, you have Seattle Kraken with 61 points. So when you look at where these teams currently fall and you look at like, hey, what's their short-term upcoming schedule? I would say Minnesota probably has the easiest schedule overall through the next 4 games. And what that means for Predators fans is that we have to see Nashville win tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena. Nashville has Minnesota tomorrow night. Saturday night, we talked about it, they're facing the Colorado Avalanche, which is always a tough game. Helps that it's Saturday night, might help that it's Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena. We're still trying to sort out this home record thing. And then next week, they have Montreal and Buffalo. So 2 teams that, record-wise should not be super challenging for the Nashville Predators, but we've seen Nashville struggle against some of the teams in the league who aren't that good. They did get wins over San Jose and Anaheim, but those were not Nashville's best performances. So you really have to dial in even against Montreal, even against Buffalo, and Nashville has to get these points. And friends, it's going to start tomorrow night against the Minnesota Wild. And again, the Wild came in here and embarrassed the Predators, who were on a 6-game win streak, defeating the Predators 6-1. That was John Hines' return to Bridgestone Arena. I think it was only his 2nd game after being named the head coach of the Wild. So absolutely have to have a different outcome tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena if the Predators want to keep building momentum to the playoffs. And I know some of you think we shouldn't even be talking about that. We're going to dive into that on tomorrow's show. And we're going to talk about what specifically the Predators have to do tomorrow night against the Minnesota Wild to get those important 2 points. So we have all that coming up on tomorrow's episode. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. I want to thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. You can check us out on social media. Find the podcast at LO_Predators. Of course, you can download and listen on any of your favorite audio podcasting platforms, and you can check us out also on YouTube. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.